Hello, everyone. What is up? My name is Tia Reed, and I'm joined here by Kira Nemi. And today we are presenting you a brand new show for Blaze Radio about all things women's basketball, whether it's college, WNBA, new pro leagues, overseas, the top high school prospects, whatever it is. We are bringing it here for you. Our new show is called Queen of the Court, and we are so excited for this opportunity.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name's Kira. A little bit about myself. I've been playing since I was 5, so I got a little bit of expertise in this area.
Yep, we're not just two sports journalists talking about basketball or anything who've never played. Like I said, I'm Tia. I played for a few years growing up, and we both love basketball.
Yeah.
We both love women's basketball, and we're just excited to be able to shed some light on the leagues and the different players. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. First thing for the week, the game recaps. The best games from college basketball, on the women's side, of course, from this past week. Start us off. What's the first game that we've got to talk about?
Okay, so the first game we have to talk about is the number 1 seed, University of South Carolina, who beats Ole Miss, number 24 seed, 69-40 on Thursday.
That was such a good game. I mean, South Carolina is so good this year. Like I don't see how South Carolina could not make it to the national championship, but they kind of blew off UConn and Gino Auriemma and said, we're going to play this conference game versus Ole Miss instead. Ole Miss comes into South Carolina, and South Carolina just destroys them. Aaliyah Boston sets a school record for 13 double-doubles in a row in consecutive games. She scored 22 points with 12 rebounds versus Ole Miss. And, I mean, Ole Miss is not a team to laugh at. Like you said, they're number 24.
No, exactly.
Shakira Austin is a pretty good player for Ole Miss this year, but, I mean, Dawn Staley and South Carolina were just too much for them.
Exactly. Our next game up is Auburn upsets number 24 Tennessee 71-61 on Thursday. Also, this was definitely a shocker, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. I think what made it funnier was at halftime of the Ole Miss and South Carolina game, ESPN, they did their preemptive top 16 rankings. And Tennessee comes in. Tennessee, they're ranked number 4. They come in as the 4th number 1 seed potentially for the tournament. And they get beat by Auburn. Unranked, just beat by Auburn. Like, how do you let that happen?
Yeah, they dropped down 3 seeds because of that.
Yeah, it went from number 4 to number 7. So, I mean, there's still obviously a lot of basketball left for the season. We've got,
exactly.
2 months. So, I think they definitely have time to maybe work their way back up there. But personally, I preferred Louisville over Tennessee for that spot anyway. So, not too mad at it. Next game we have to talk about another upset. Arkansas upset LSU. LSU in their first year with former Baylor coach Kim Mulkey, who is a legend, as many would say. They got upset 90-76 also on Thursday by Arkansas. I think Arkansas started the season ranked. They've been okay. Yeah. They have a few good alumni. Chelsea Dungy's playing in the WNBA. I think she's in Dallas. But, I mean, Arkansas gets the win over LSU. LSU also dropped down 3 spots because of that one. They were 12, dropped down to 15. What's the next game?
Number 10 UConn beats DePaul 80-78 on Wednesday.
Let's talk about this, right? UConn. Number 10 ranked UConn beats DePaul. Granted, they're not a bad team, but DePaul is unranked.
Yes.
Is it a Big East rivalry? Sure, whatever. Does DePaul have the best freshman in the nation? Yeah, probably. But UConn only beats them by 2 points, and they're ranked number 10.
Yeah, it's I think it's something that we should talk about a little later in this episode.
You're right. We will get so much further into UConn's number 10 ranking, but I mean, they got the win, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, Anissa Morrow, who is one of the best freshmen in the nation, potentially the best freshman in the nation, she had 30 points, 12 rebounds versus UConn. Ozzie Fudd, another freshman who is a number 1 recruit from the 2021 class, she played her first game since November. And a nice 15 points, was 3 for 6 from 3, which I think is something UConn definitely is going to want more of, considering Paige Beckers is still out, and I think is supposed to be out for a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
So something that UConn would like to see in that. As ASU students, I feel like it is our responsibility to talk about the absolute destruction of the ASU women's basketball team by number 2 Stanford.
Yes. 78-50.
78-50. That is, I mean, like Stanford's the number 2 team in the nation. Did we expect anything else?
No, not really.
No, not really. I mean, ASU has some things they still need to put together, like putting the ball in the hoop. But, I mean, it's basketball. Sometimes you just can't make shots.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. Go Sun Devils.
And, I mean, another UConn game, another close UConn game. They face an unranked team. They beat Providence 69-61. We'll talk about how that performance also plays a little bit more into our opinions of their rankings.
Number 2 Stanford beats number 8 Arizona 75-69 on Sunday.
Ooh, that was a nice little championship rematch.
Yeah.
I mean, Stanford got the win over U of A last season in the March Madness, the women's tournament, the kind of bubble they did. I think it was in San Antonio, but Stanford came away with that one, and so it was a rematch, and it was pretty close throughout the game. And Stanford, they end up getting the win by 6 points. Of course, performances from Cameron Brink. Cameron Brink is, I mean, one of Stanford's 4, 5-headed monsters between Cameron Brink, Haley Jones, Lacey Hold, all of them. So, I mean,
they're a team to watch out for.
Sure. And just yesterday, Monday night, matchup between number 5 and number 6, Michigan took down Indiana 65-50. I really like this Michigan team. I think this Michigan team, they're different than I think a lot of the other teams in these rankings are. Michigan has worked their way up more so, and I feel like they've definitely earned their spot, and they don't just have it as a value of being, we were ranked high in the preseason and we just kind of stayed there. No, they weren't ranked as high, and they definitely came up. So I really like seeing that in this Michigan team, especially Naz Hillman. I think she's a great player. Yeah,
I feel like Michigan's one of those teams that you never are like, that's a team that's going to win it. They're definitely, they were an underdog, and they're working their way up.
Yeah, Michigan is definitely a team that I don't think people expected
Yeah.
a whole lot from. They might have expected some of this, but maybe not quite to the degree that they've done it.
Exactly.
They took down Indiana, so it's likely through all this week's games, as long as they win, I don't know which other games they have coming up, but as long as they win maybe their games this week, they get the bump up to number 5. I mean, I think Michigan will be a real fun team to watch what they do come tournament time.
For sure.
And then Iowa game yesterday. I don't really care about the Iowa game yesterday. I care about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark had 43 points, and Iowa lost. But Caitlin Clark had 43 points.
That's insane.
Caitlin Clark is phenomenal. I feel for Caitlin Clark. I really do. Because had it not been for Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark probably would have won all those same awards that Beckers had last year. All those same awards, all the freshman awards. Caitlin Clark really got the short end of the stick. And I think she is really working to try to get some credibility, get some awards with Paige Beckers being out. And I think Caitlin Clark, she reminds me, maybe not in the way that she plays necessarily, but just in she's not as much of a triple-double machine as Sabrina Ionescu was, because obviously, I mean, we know Sabrina Ionescu cranked out triple-doubles always, but I mean, Caitlin Clark, she's gotten a few triple-doubles so far this season. Obviously, she can drop crazy amounts of points. She's got somewhere around, I think she's got 300 points for the month of January, which is some sort of Big Ten record. Yeah. I mean, Caitlin Clark is doing big things. She's a great player for Iowa, but unfortunately, Iowa lost, despite her 43-point performance. So.
Next up is LSU beats Kentucky 78-69, and this game actually put Kim Mulkey this is her 650th win. She's the fastest to reach it.
Like I said earlier, Kim Mulkey, a legendary coach who, I mean, she coached for Baylor for many, many years. After the tournament last year, she left Baylor to go and coach for LSU. LSU, I mean, they worked their way up through the rankings as well to number 12. Now they're to 15, but I mean, Kim Mulkey is a phenomenal coach, is a legendary coach who will certainly be put into the Hall of Fame, will certainly have all sorts of accolades. I mean, she already has plenty of accolades awarded to her, but I'm sure she will win more before she comes near the end of her coaching tenure, whether it's at LSU, whether she ends up moving to another school. Kim Mulkey is a phenomenal coach, and she will get her deserving. But now that we've gone through some of the top games from this past week, we talked a little bit about how people have moved through the rankings, but let's dig a little bit deeper into those rankings and focus on some of these teams that we think are, if they're where they should be, if they're too high, too low. What's the first team that you think we need to talk about from these rankings?
I believe in our opinions, we think UConn is a little bit overranked.
A little bit. You can't tell me that UConn is the number 10 team without Paige Beckers. UConn was barely number 3 with Paige Beckers. Yeah. And like UConn is not they have the bias of the fact that they're UConn and the fact that their coach is Gino Auriemma. UConn is not as good as they have been. I'm not going to say they're not good because they are good. They're a good team. They have several high recruits from the past few years. They've got several players who will probably get drafted in the upcoming WNBA draft when I think April comes around. So, I'm not going to say UConn's a bad team, but UConn is not the same UConn team that we have known for years and years and years. This is not the same UConn team that Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart and people like them came from. So to have UConn rated at 10, it's just a legacy bias. It really is.
Yeah, UConn's, obviously, their last couple games, they've been playing teams that are unranked, and they've just been barely getting by with their wins. So I think they're definitely ranked too high.
Even from the start of the season, when they played a couple of ranked teams, like UConn in the battle for Atlantis at the beginning of the season, UConn played South Carolina.
Yeah.
UConn got blown out by South Carolina. So, it wasn't even close. I think to have UConn this high at 10 still, I don't know when UConn's next ranked matchup is, but I hope UConn gets upset. Because if this trend continues and UConn gets put somewhere in if they get a 4 seed, they might be safe. If they're a 3 or 4 seed first round of the tournament, they might be safe. But I think if UConn gets put at a 5 seed, honestly, depending on who they might have to play as a 4 or a 5 seed, I think they're out first round of the tournament. I think they're getting cleared out easily unless they step it up, even if Paige comes back.
Yeah.
So I think UConn is by far the team that is placed in the wrong spot.
Yeah. Next, we're just going to talk about this again real quick. Tennessee drops from 4 to 7.
I mean, Tennessee dropping from 4 to 7, not lost to Auburn. I mean, that's not something you really want to happen. You don't want to lose in an SEC matchup, an in-conference matchup, when you're the number 4 team to an unranked Auburn team. It's not something we really want to see as, the Tennessee coach, players, fans, whatever. But it happened, and now Tennessee is 7, so now they'll have to work their way back up, but they're in the SEC.
Yeah.
There's so many teams you could run into in the SEC, even the unranked teams in the SEC, obviously like Auburn, they can hit pretty hard, and so, I think Tennessee will definitely have their chances to work their way back into that top 4, top 5, and I think Tennessee, regardless, is still going to get a good spot in the tournament as the season finishes out here in this next month and a half or so. So I think Tennessee will be fine in the long run.
Yeah. Another opinion, we feel like Oregon is underranked.
Oregon is 100% underranked. I mean, I get why Oregon is ranked where they are. Oregon is currently ranked 19th. And they're ranked there because they had to play a lot of their earlier season matchups without some of their best players. Tina Paopao and Niara Sablé, I think both were out with various injuries here and there. And Oregon they didn't have some of their great best players. Like, Niara Sablé is great. Niara Sablé, she has a sister in the WNBA, and they play similarly. Niara Sablé is very good for Oregon. And so I think now that they have those players back, Oregon is doing really, really good. And I think as the season progresses, I think Oregon's going to start to climb in these rankings a little bit. And I think Oregon will be able to work their way up. Yeah. But, I mean, I get why Oregon's where they are. But I think through time will tell that Oregon is obviously not the 19th ranked team in the nation.
Yeah.
They're far better than that.
Also, didn't University of North Carolina just come up into the top 25?
I think UNC did just come up in the top 25. They upset someone.
Because I think they're 24 right now.
Yeah, UNC was in the top 25, dropped out of the top 25, and now they're back in the top 25. So UNC is another team that's new-ish to the top 25 for this week. But I mean, UNC I think is UNC is a top 25. I don't think UNC really should have dropped out of the top 25 to begin with.
Yeah.
So
Great
I mean,
team.
obviously they're back, so
Yeah.
everything's good for them. And I mean, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, that top 16 projection from Thursday with South Carolina South Carolina, Stanford, North Carolina State, and Tennessee as the projected number 1 seeds. Obviously, now that Tennessee's lost, when this comes back around, Tennessee's not going to be one of the top 4 teams. I think the expectation is that Louisville moves up and fills that spot. Like I said, I think Louisville should have been there anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I'm a huge Haley Van Lith stan, and that's why. But, I mean, between Tennessee and Louisville, I think both teams are pretty good.
Yeah.
I think both teams, it really could be a toss-up between them for 4 and 5 as the season progresses, as maybe one team wins or loses a couple more in conference games, ranked matchups, whatever. So I think either way, both teams are set.
Yeah.
And as we talked about, some of the best players that are on some of these teams in college basketball who will be looking to join the WNBA next year, in a couple years, in a few years, who knows? But we've got to talk about what's happening in the WNBA right now. WNBA, free agency. There's big players who are on the moves. There's big players who are re-signing with their teams. There's big players who are coming back for their final years with their teams, who making all sorts of changes in WNBA free agency, starting off with the reigning Chicago Sky, who were the champions. They won the WNBA finals. They're losing Stephanie Dolson.
Yeah.
She is headed to New York to join that team,
Liberty.
the New York Liberty, who took the Mercury's coach. They got is Brondello the new coach, or is that the old coach? I'm trying to remember.
I do not remember.
Oh, no. They got the coach from Phoenix, though. She moved from Phoenix to New York, and I mean, I think New York's roster is like adding Stephanie Dolson. That's a big deal for New York, and I mean they have Sabrina Ionescu, who I mean her rookie year she hurt her ankle. She came back. She's been doing a little bit here and there for them. Betnaja Laney, who was really good for the Liberty, Michaela Onyenwere, who was really good. So, I mean, they've got a nice young core. They've got some veterans to fill out around them. They add Stephanie Dolson. They add the new coach from the Phoenix Mercury, who were just in the finals. Like, I think the Liberty are going to be up there. I think they're making a play from, maybe not worst, because they weren't the worst team in the league this year, but worst-ish to first-ish.
Yeah. Next is Kia Vaughn. She was traded from Phoenix to Atlanta for 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, Kia Vaughn, just coming from the finals, the Phoenix Mercury, on the move from Phoenix to Atlanta for a 3rd-rounder. So, I mean, 3rd-rounder, I mean, it's a draft pick, so,
yeah, exactly.
And knowing the Atlanta Dream, it's probably a decent pick in the 3rd round, considering Atlanta's not good, hasn't been good, and so, I mean, I imagine they'll be able to pick pretty early on in the 3rd round, but just something to keep note of there, just, trade. It's one of the first ones that we've seen so far in this free agency period, so we figured we'd give it a mention, and I think maybe part of the biggest news in one of the teams that's been making a few moves, or who was looking like they're going to lose some players, but they were able to bring it back in, the Seattle Storm. Mm-hmm. I mean, Brianna Stewart, they were on the brink of losing Brianna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd. There was tons of speculation. Both of them had met with the New York Liberty. It looked like the Liberty were going to get all these superstar players, and then we just get the boring result.
Yeah, Brianna comes back for a 1-year Supermax, and Jewel Lloyd is signed for 2 years. So they're going to be rejoining Sue Bird in her last season, which is saddening. Love Sue Bird, but you know, it happens.
Sue Bird is a legend. She announced one more a couple weeks ago, and so Brianna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd will be back in Seattle with her. But I think it is worth taking note of the fact that Jewel Lloyd's on a 2-year deal, whatever. Brianna Stewart signed a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And so I think there is the possibility that, she plays out this 1 year with Seattle. They do whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a possibility she leaves after this year.
Especially with Sue Bird going. I know they have a little connection going there.
And I think as loud as the whispers were about her going to the Liberty, I wouldn't count it out that she plays out this 1 year with Seattle, finishes up Sue Bird's career with her, and then packs her bags for New York. Yeah. So I think that is definitely something to keep an eye on as this season goes and as we, a year passes and we get around to next year's free agency and see where she ships off to. Like we said, there hasn't been a lot to happen free agency. Most of the things have been people, retaining their stars. So like Kalia Copper, Finals MVP, will stay in Chicago with Candace Parker. They will look for another championship. They will look to see if they can go back-to-back. Sylvia Fowles re-signs with the Minnesota Lynx for what they announced will be her last season in the WNBA. Sylvia Fowles, widely regarded as one of the best centers in women's basketball history. Yes. She's playing her last year. That'll be quite the retirement tour. That'll be fun to see for her.
For sure.
Glad she's getting, she gets to play this one last year and gets to really experience the whole legacy tour and everything. So that'll be fun for her.
Yeah.
ASU's own Brianne January. She is moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, going from the Connecticut Sun to Seattle. I mean, both teams were playoff teams last year. Connecticut Sun hold the reigning MVP, John Cole Jones. So, Brianne January, she'll be out here with Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd, too, in a packed roster. So, anything could happen there. And then the only, turmoil that we really got going here still is Allie Quigley and Courtney Vandersloot, who were on the Chicago Sky. Mm-hmm. I mean, and no word on them.
Yeah, no word. They're free agents. The twist to this is that they're together. So what we're thinking is they might end up trying to go somewhere together. So
I think that's the likely. That seemed like a very probable scenario.
Yeah.
That they end up,
they're married. So.
Yeah. They end up trying to go somewhere where they can play together, which, I think would be great to see them stay together, especially since they play so well together.
Yeah, for sure. They're both amazing players. They've done so much for this guy. Courtney Vandersloot, been watching her since she was at Gonzaga, and she just gets better.
Both of them were heavy contributors on this championship run for the Sky. Where do you think would be a good place for them to land?
Honestly, personally, I like to see people in Seattle. But, we've already got some people re-signing. I think they're perfect at the Sky. But as you saw a tweet earlier, I believe, they gave her a crappy,
Yes, Holly Rowe reported that the Sky reached out to Vandersloot with a quote-unquote disrespectful offer. So I don't know how that could affect negotiations going forward. I don't know how that could affect Vandersloot's opinion of the Sky's front office and everything there. So it will be interesting to see if, they, Sky reach out with a better offer, or if maybe she slips away and takes an offer from somewhere else. I think an interesting place for them to end up. I feel like they could do something in LA. I feel like LA is missing a few pieces. They have Tia Cooper at guard, but they just lost Elizabeth Williams. I believe she went to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I think they've got a few spots open at guard over in LA. And the Sparks, they're on the verge of they're a decent team. They have Nneka Ogwumike. Theoretically, they have Chiney Ogwumike whenever she's not on ESPN. So I think that would just be an interesting place to see them. Just for fun.
Maybe see how the team turns out.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. I don't know if LA has any cap space though. That could be that could be a whole other thing. It's like, do they have room to take on not one but two of them? So, and this is the WNBA free agency. It's the WNBA off season. So theoretically, right? Normally in years past there hasn't been any professional basketball on the women's side, but this year is different. It's not overseas. It's not somewhere else. It's happening not too far from us, up in Las Vegas.
Woo!
The brand new league, Athletes Unlimited Pro Sports. They've done professional leagues for women's softball, for lacrosse, for volleyball, and now they're bringing Athletes Unlimited professional basketball. And this league is unlike anything you've probably ever seen before, unless you've watched one of the other sports that they do.
Yeah.
But basically, there's no coaches. There's no set teams. How this works is the players, they've gone through week 1. So they did week 1. And basically you have 4 captains assigned for each week based off of points. And you gain points by playing well in games, winning a game MVP, with your team winning at halftime and after each quarter, winning games, and putting up points and padding stats, all type of stuff. That's how you earn points as a player in the Athletes Unlimited leagues. And then you at the end of the week they take the top 4 people who they assign them as captains, and then they draft from the pool of players each week, and the order kind of snakes between who the top player from that week was, and it goes down and it goes back up. So it's the 4 teams, and they're drafted, and then they go and they play. And then they play the next week of games. They rack up the points again, and then it repeats. They take out the top 4 again and reset and redraft. And I think that is such an interesting concept.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's so nice to have off-season women's basketball league. And the concept itself is, I would have never thought of it. It kind of reminds me of a video game, not going to lie, but it's really cool.
Just redrafting every week. And it's not just it's not random players. It's not nobodies.
Yeah.
There are former college stars.
Olympians.
Current WNBA players in this league. I mean, starting off week 1, like Dejanay Carrington, who was just playing for Baylor a couple years ago, was playing for Baylor in the Final Four. She was one of the top teams. She plays for the Sun. Didn't get much playing time for the Sun throughout this season. And then she comes in and she's one of the captains for week 1. She's scoring 30 points in a couple of her team's games. Her team goes 3-0 for week 1. And Tasha Cloud, who currently plays for the Mystics, she's an integral part of that Mystics team. She's currently a captain for week 2. Izzy Harrison, a good young player for the Dallas Wings. She's a captain for week 2 as well. Lexi Brown in Minnesota, she is another one of these captains. So I mean, you can see the trend here. These are real WNBA players, players with real experience who are really good, who maybe don't get as much time to shine in the WNBA, and who maybe don't want to go overseas to play basketball during their off season, can play it right here throughout the month of February and into March, and be back just in time for that WNBA offseason to start, and then the season kicks off in May. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
And I just think this league is amazing. They've done a lot. They have a partnership with Ari Chambers and highlight her for all their social media branding and all their attention. They have TV deals with Fox Sports and CBS Sports Networks, and they stream their stuff on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and I think all of it. It's very new age sports and sports media.
Oh, for sure. And
I think it is, with the attention that it's getting, I hope the WNBA looks at this and learns from it. It's this is how we can market players.
Yes.
This is how we can market a league. This is how we can get people to watch and be fans, because we know the WNBA struggles with that.
Yes, exactly.
But I think this league is phenomenal. I'm excited to see how this goes. I think it puts an emphasis on individual play, but also team play at the same time. And so I think this league is great, and it'll be a fun thing to keep track of as the season progresses.
Yeah, maybe we should go drive out and see a game.
Head out to Vegas. Do you have a car?
I do have a car.
You have a car? Oh, maybe. head out to Vegas and go watch a couple of games. I think that would be very, very fun. Week 2 for the games kicks off this tomorrow, Wednesday, and they'll also play games on Friday and Saturday. It'll be 3 games for each team, and that's week 2 for the league. But we are reaching the end of our time. We talked about a lot.
We did. We hit a lot of points.
We talked about a lot of stuff. We hit all of our points. We got all the big news in sports. I mean, I think this show is important because I think it's important to talk about women's basketball. I think it's important to have a place for people to be able to tune in and hear about women's basketball. I mean, we can talk about all things college, WNBA, any other type of pro. We talk about some of the best players, have interesting conversations, back and forth debates. I think this is great.
I think it's great. It's a
I
great.
think it's great.
It's just great. I mean, people like to step on women's basketball, and I think if we bring more light to it, then they'll be like, oh, like, this is kind of cool.
It's dope. Women's basketball is so cool.
And these women work hard, too, so.
Absolutely.
It's great to see.
So, we are unfortunately at the end of our time. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you.
And we hope we get a spot for Blaze this semester. Thank you.